It'll stop in about 20 seconds. Oh, nope, 12 watching that. Boy, that didn't take long. Now it says Harvest of Gratitude, Kendyl Gibbons. And I have the weird, this is on PC now, and I've got the weird chopped off slide. Yeah, well, I just, you know what, you have to expand it and then shrink it.
All Souls Unitarian Universalist Church, building community, inspiring growth, creating change. Here in the heart of Kansas City, we come together to create this hour of shared reflection so that we might be renewed in courage for these times and inspired to lives of greater dignity, higher purpose, deeper generosity, and more effective action. If you are new to Unitarian Universalism or to our congregation, we want to get to know you and share part of your journey. If this place is already your spiritual home, welcome once more. We need one another, and it is good to be together again. Because we care for one another's safety, our congregation is gathering online during this long season of coronavirus pandemic. Nevertheless, through the gifts of technology, we continue to celebrate community and connections as we lean into the values of justice, compassion, and reason. Together, we learn the love that has the power to overcome both loneliness in the heart and oppression in the world. Welcome to our service this morning. May the words and music and images that we offer today nourish our best selves, calling forth abundant wisdom and love. Arise, O souls, arise. Good morning, and welcome once again to this virtual gathering of the All Souls community, as we do what we can to protect one another from the danger of disease, even on this traditional week of Thanksgiving, while the COVID pandemic continues to ravage our neighborhoods and our nation. This morning, we shall consider that there remains much for us to be thankful for together. But let us begin with this solemn acknowledgement, adapted from the words of President-elect Joe Biden, who reminds us, in so many ways, 2020 has been a year of tremendous suffering and loss. For the transgender and gender non-conforming communities in the United States, this has also been the most violent year yet on record. At least 37 transgender and gender non-conforming people have been killed this year, most of them Black and brown transgender women. This is intolerable. On this Transgender Day of Remembrance, we lift up and honor their lives. And we must recommit to the work that remains to ensure that every transgender and gender nonconforming person in America has the opportunity to live authentically and safe from harm, to earn a living wage, and to be treated with dignity and respect in their communities and their workplaces. We must all work to end the epidemic of violence and discrimination against our transgender and gender nonconforming fellow citizens and never repeat it, no matter what our own sexual or gender identity may be. Transgender rights are human rights. All transgender and gender nonconforming people across America and around the world deserve to know that we will see you, listen to you, and fight for you, not only for your safety, but also the dignity and justice you have been denied for too long. We gather today as a covenant community of memory and promise, Let our memory embrace those whose lives have been lost to ignorance and prejudice in all its forms. And let our promise include justice, dignity, and welcome for all people of goodwill. In this commitment, we kindle once more the chalice flame of our heritage. May its light summon us yet again to challenge systems of harm, to nurture and heal the connections of our interdependent web of creation, and to build the beloved community in which goodness and beauty shall thrive and all beings have peace. If you are joining in kindling your chalice flame at home, I invite you to let us know in the comments where it burns. Then we will join together in our opening autumn hymn and our words of covenant.
In sweet fields of autumn, the gold rain is falling, the white clouds drift lonely, the wild swan is calling. Alas for the daisies, the tall fern and grasses, when we sleep and rainfall fill lands and masses. The snows of December shall fill windy hollow, the bleak rain trails after, and March wind shall follow. My dear, through the valleys, leave bridge of blowing, and islands asleep mark the ridges of snowing. The stillness of death shall stoop over the water, the brothers sleep low where the pale streamlets falter. But deep in the Iroquois, the black seed is living, where spring sounds her bugles for rousing and giving.
Now let's join together in speaking once again our covenant promises to this community.
Then you should turn that.
Together we affirm,
Goodwill is the spirit of this church, and service is its law.
Off the speaker here.
This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
this coming Thursday, many of us will celebrate the American tradition of Thanksgiving. Usually, this is an opportunity to gather with family and friends for a festive meal and to pay attention to the many gifts of life that we have occasion to be grateful for. Things are different this year, and many of our customs have had to be curtailed in order not to spread the deadly pandemic virus to those we love. For a lot of us, this holiday originated in a mythology of American history that is not based in fact. A mythology about the relationships between European colonists and the indigenous peoples of the American continent that denied and perpetuated great harm. As we explore how to recognize and heal that harm, and how to honor the native inhabitants of this land and their history as part of our observance, we might do well to begin with the Haudenosaunee tradition of the Thanksgiving address, known to its community as Ohanda Galiwadekwa, the words that come before all else. These words are a litany of gratitude for the mutuality of the natural world, the ways in which all creatures, plants, and elements work together to keep the world in balance and beauty, what we might call the interdependent web. At every gathering in the Haudenosaunee culture, this recitation is the first act, so that the people who are coming together shall begin with a common focus of gratitude and thus bring their minds into accord with one another. It is a beautiful call to both thankfulness and solidarity. I invite us now to join in this visual and musical meditation on the words that come before all else. You might find it meaningful to read the words aloud as they appear on the screen, especially if you are watching with children. Like many aspects of spiritual practice among indigenous traditions, it continues longer than the average television commercial break, long enough to actually create a shift in our brain rhythms. So relax into it and enjoy. Now let our minds be one.
Alphabet of Gratitude by Gary Kowalski. We give thanks for the earth and its creatures and are grateful from A to Z. For alligators, apricots, acorns, and apple trees. For bumblebees, bananas, blueberries, and beagles. Coconuts, crawdads, cornfields, and coffee. Daisies, elephants, and flying fish. For groundhogs, glaciers, and grasslands. Hippos and hazelnuts, icicles and iguanas. For juniper, jackrabbits, and Junebugs. Kudzu and kangaroos, lightning bugs and licorice. For mountains and milkweed and mistletoe. Nasturtiums and nightingales, otters and ocelots. For peonies, persimmons, and polar bears. Quahogs and Queen Anne's lace. For raspberries and roses, salmon and sassafras, tornadoes and tulip wood, urchins, valleys, and waterfalls. For X, the unknown mystery of all. In every yak and yam we are grateful, good earth, not least of all for zinnias, zucchini, and zebras, and for the alphabet of wonderful things that are as simple as ABC.
Good morning. I'm Chandra DeMaria, and I'm a member of the Board of Trustees and a member of this congregation. As we ready to close out another month in what has been a long year, for a variety of reasons, we have reason to be optimistic and hopeful. The opportunity to look forward calls us to reflect on all for which we are thankful, grateful, and appreciative in every facet of our lives. Today's offering helps support the All Souls General Budget. I know most of us pledge funds regularly to All Souls, but our gifts during the year don't provide enough to meet our budget. Our offerings during church provide additional income needed to further our needs and enable us to continue doing good work. As a congregation, we give our time, our passion, our voices, and our support. Today I'm asking you to give thanks and to then give so we can continue doing that good work. I am grateful that I walked through the doors 2 years ago searching for a place to belong. I am appreciative that on one of those early days, Carol Fields sat down next to me in the lobby and broke the ice. I appreciate Dory for reaching out to invite me to dinner out of the blue. And I appreciate Carol Cowles for calling to check in on me frequently to make sure that I'm doing okay. And for the opportunity to come together with you to celebrate Claudine's birthday and to have known, even for a little while, those who have left us. I am thankful for the chance to serve with you during Pride Week and will be forever grateful for the opportunity to work alongside so many of you as we launched our first and second warming centers, taking on a new challenge. My heart is full of thanks each time we come together to feed people who are unhoused, for the opportunity to help support our children during summer camp, and to watch them grow in our religious education program. I'm thankful for our choirs and Irish soda bread, Yule Box, chili cook-offs, and breaking bread as part of our dinners for 8. For the beautiful space where we meet in person and where I'm hopeful we will meet once again, as well as for our virtual home. I am grateful for each and every one of you. May the offering be given and gratefully received.
Once more the liberal year laughs out, o'er richer stores than gems or gold. Once is nature's bloodless triumph told. O'er favors every year made new, O blessings with the sunshine sent, the bounty overruns our due, the fullness shames our discontent. We shut our eyes, the flowers bloom on, we murmur but the corn ears fill, we choose the shadow but the sun, that casts its shines behind us still. Now let these altars wreathed with flowers and piled with fruits awake again, thanksgiving for the golden hours, the early and the latter rain.
Let's say together the words of dedication for our offering. We dedicate our offerings and our actions to the mission at the heart of this congregation, to build a respectful, caring community, to inspire personal and spiritual growth, and to create change toward a just and compassionate society.
Good morning. Today's reading, Blessed Be the Flower That Triumphs, is adapted from a longer poem by the same name by Michael de Vernon Boblet. And you can find it online with a quick search. I'd highly recommend it. Blessed be the flower that triumphs over snows and thorns and withered stems, over windswept mountains, deserts, cruel and dry. Blessed be the flower that triumphs over wars and change and centuries, over barbed wire fences, soldiers' heavy feet. Blessed be the flower that triumphs over well-meant hands bent on gathering, over small, closed rooms with vases hard and cold, over words of priests and of poets' pens, and attempts to tame its wild truth. Blessed be the flower that triumphs over past and death and silences, enduring iron, tears, and severed roots, and restoring to all things a joyful smallness. Blessed be the flower that triumphs at last.
Blessed be the flower that triumphs over everything the world can throw at it. It may be tempting to think of flowers as fragile and transient, the lilies of the field, as they are called in Scripture, that springeth up and are cut down and thrown into the fire. Defenseless, it would seem, against the overzealous mower, the hungry deer, the florist's acquisitive eye, the rough wind, the worm, and the blight. And yet, their persistent diversity and profusion continue to astound us with form and color, and their brief sweetness is their triumph. Beauty is not arbitrary. It is the perfection of their purpose, the effort to lure a pollinator, the urgent need to send their dusty bequest out upon the breezes, so that the fruit and the seed may arise in turn. Biologists have suggested that it is not only we who have domesticated animals, that in fact humans are only half of a willing partnership, and the creatures who have chosen to ally with us as an evolutionary strategy have induced us to meet their needs as much as we have manipulated them to meet ours. So too with those forms of plant life that we are pleased to think we breed. They know our lust for color and the luxury of scent, our hunger for the cheerful yellow of crocus outfacing the last snow, and the purple-red asters defying the gathering frosts. Blessed be the flower that triumphs over our indifference and ingratitude, over our hurry and our distraction, over our unseeing of the world we share with all other life, and the blessings that are every moment at hand. It is for this that we make our gardens, the patch of tulips, the lilac hedge, the row of tomatoes, the orchard, the pot of geraniums on the patio, the fern in the windowsill, so that we might be startled and called again to attention by the seduction of intricate elegance, by the shock of fuchsia and magenta, or cream against emerald, blue-green lichen on a gray twig, perfume in the evening air, sweet ripeness at our lips. Blessed be the planting and tending, the blooming and the harvest. Blessed be the flower that triumphs, and the garden that is the beauty of the earth made manifest for us. Thank you to everyone who contributed images of their favorite gardens over the past year. The flowers help, because gratitude is a hard sell here at the ragged end of 2020, with COVID cases rising fast and winter's peril about to descend on us, and 60 days left of a presidency that is equal parts incompetence and menace. Gratitude is not the first motion of the spirit in a year when we have watched our Black brothers murdered by police, and our transgender sisters beaten to death, and our queer dear ones denied jobs and housing and health care. When we must wake every day knowing that there are still children in cages, some of whom may never find their parents again because of our government. When we have watched peaceful protesters gassed and shot by rogue militia troops, and judges and political leaders with integrity must abide daily threats of death for doing their jobs. Being grateful is not high on the list of feelings when your job disappears because the pandemic spreads, and just barely getting by becomes getting evicted, or not being able to afford your child's medicine. It's hard to remember what to be thankful for when you are an exhausted frontline healthcare worker or teacher or store clerk dealing with the oblivious public. It's hard to know how to be grateful in the year when you had to cancel your wedding or family visit or your graduation or your dad's funeral because it wasn't safe. When you are alone and aching for human companionship, isolated and bored and depressed. What are we supposed to be grateful for in 2020 anyway? To be honest, I have always struggled with the advice to count my blessings. Not because my life is not full of good fortune and privilege in many ways, it is. But every advantage and comfort that comes to mind immediately reminds me of those who do not enjoy that good thing, who suffer from the lack of it. How can I give thanks for a warm, beautiful home when I know there are families living under bridges? How can I rejoice in the security of a beloved spouse when others are injured and killed by their intimate partners? And the more I understand the interlocking systems of supremacy that permeate our culture, the more I wonder whether I not only have that which others do not have, but have it precisely because others do not, at their expense. Then gratitude feels like ashes in the mouth and an insult to justice. And I, who do not believe in a conscious, benevolent God, am reminded of one of the reasons why not. Because what kind of God would welcome the grateful thanks of one creature for the gifts that another creature was dying for want of? It's a bit complicated, this gratitude thing, which is why Thanksgiving is not as straightforward a celebration as it was once portrayed in the dominant white American culture. The events at Plymouth in the fall of 1621 were not historically the first expressions of gratitude to a European colonial god on this continent. That would be either Florida or Mexico, depending on which account you find most credible. Neither were the relationships with the indigenous tribes as unambiguous as legend would have it. One of the settlers' first acts was to discover and steal for their own use a winter cache of seed corn preserved by the Nausetts, and to disinter and rob a nearby grave. They later, under pressure to make peace with allies of the Nosets, offered to compensate them for the stolen corn, from which the Pilgrims had grown their one successful crop that year. It is doubtful that the English settlers would have survived either hunger or armed resistance from various indigenous communities without the assistance of Tisquantum and Samoset, two indigenous men who had been captured by previous white raiding parties and sold into servitude in Europe. In separate journeys, these two men had learned English and sailed back to the Western Hemisphere as guides to fishers, fur traders, and explorers. When he escaped from the expedition he was serving into his native lands, Tisquantum found all the members of his own tribe dead of European disease, and his welcome among rival tribes uncertain. It was for this reason that he willingly allied himself with the Plymouth colonists and was able to serve as their translator and diplomat for the first 2 years of their settlement, until his own sudden death in November of 1622. Ironically, it seems that the so-called saints among the colonists were eager to evangelize the natives they encountered and convert them to Christianity, for which reason they sought to maintain a certain level of credibility with the surrounding tribes. However, the English corporate investors in their project kept sending over additional colonists who were not part of the religious community in the expectation that the existing settlers would house and feed them while they returned the profit of their labor back to England. None of these new arrivals were part of the religious covenant community, and they were more interested in exploiting the natives, who they thought of as savages, than in converting them. With Tisquantum dead, relations among the different groups of Europeans and the competing indigenous tribes quickly deteriorated. After 1621, every officially declared day of Thanksgiving until the end of the Civil War was to celebrate a military victory by colonial or U.S. soldiers over the indigenous peoples attempting to defend their lands, their resources, their cultures, and their lives. Like I said, this gratitude thing is complicated. How shall we give thanks for the gift of something that was stolen? I have never been a great believer in the power of prayer, except as it might serve to change my own heart. But I do think it's prudent to be careful what you wish for. And I think we pray with our hands and our feet. I think that the meal we give to a hungry person is a prayer for mercy. And the protest we march in is a prayer for justice. The mask that we wear to the grocery store is a prayer for our neighbors. And the time we spend quarantined at home is a prayer for the world. That kind of prayer I believe in. And I believe that there are dangerous prayers, the be careful what you wish for prayers. Margaret Fuller, the transcendentalist feminist, reflected on one late in her life. She writes, "In the chamber of death, I prayed in very early years, give me truth, cheat me by no illusion. Oh, the granting of this prayer is sometimes terrible to me. I walk over burning plowshares and they sear my feet, yet nothing but truth will do." That's a dangerous prayer, folks. Here's another one, a prelude to Thanksgiving, that I have never yet had the audacity to pray. It goes like this: take from my life anything that I have that comes by way of the unwilling suffering of other beings. I wish I had the strength to pray that prayer. Then maybe I could give thanks for my blessings with a whole heart and sincere mind. I have not yet given up hope that I might someday grow into it. But in the meantime, the Haudenosaunee have a word for me, a practice of gratitude, which they teach is to happen before all else. When you come together with other people for any purpose, whether many or few, begin with the acknowledgement of a creativity and complexity and power and beauty beyond anything that you yourself can accomplish. Blessed be the flower that triumphs, that lives anyway, through the winter, through the disease, through the folly of leaders and the treachery of princes, through the losses that break our hearts and the lonely aloneness that weighs upon our spirits. Give thanks for the waters and the fish in them, for the medicine plants and the gardens and harvests, as well as the skies and the thunder beings, for all that you know and do not know of the world. Offer gratitude that something as brief as a flower endures beyond barbed wire and cold vases and all attempts to tame its wild truth. There is a creative energy in the world that comes before us and is not ours, that we did not make and cannot harm, the original blessing that no one owns and none can ever steal or sell or colonize or ever lose. It is what sustains us in the generations of oppression with the vision of freedom. It is what summons us to hang on through the dangers of resistance and change. It is what inspires us to integrity and compassion in the just uses of power when power comes to our hands, as well as when it slips away. And though everything were lost to us that we inherit from the evils of the past, this blessing yet remains, and we need never be ashamed for it. Give thanks for this, the flower that triumphs, not comfort, not privilege, not success or luck or the chances of fortune that others do not share. For these may all be swept away in the tides of history or subverted by something as tiny and arbitrary as a virus. The true practice of gratitude cannot be founded on anything less than the interdependent web of all existence, from which we are not and never can be separated. The true practice of gratitude finds its object in the joyful smallness of flowers that triumphs over past and death and silences and endures beyond iron and tears and severed roots. And so we send greetings and thanks for all the gifts of creation, for all the love that is still around us. We gather our minds together as one and send our choicest words of greeting and thanks and say, now our minds are one. Blessed be.
Blessed be the Lord that triumphs over snows and thorns and withered stems, over windswept mountains, deserts cool and dry.
and severed, bruised, and restoring to all things a joyful smile. Blessed be the flower that I lost at last.
The poet Marge Piercy offers advice for times like this. She says, connections are made slowly. Sometimes they grow underground. You cannot always tell by looking what is happening. More than half the tree is spread out in the soil under your feet. Weave real connections. Create real nodes. Build real houses. Live a life you can endure. Live as if you liked yourself, and it may happen. Reach out. Keep reaching out. Keep bringing in. This is how we are going to live for a long time, but not always. For every gardener knows that after the digging, after the planting, after the long season of tending and growth, the harvest comes. So be it.
Come, ye thankful people, come, raise the song of harvest home. All is safely gathered in, ere the winter storms begin. Earth is bounteous to provide, for our wants to be supplied. Come in glad thanksgiving, come, raise the song of harvest home. These our days are as a field, sweet abundant fruit to yield, wheat and tares together sown, unto joy or sorrow grown. First the bud and then the ear, then the full corn shall appear. Live so that at harvest we wholesome grain and pure may be. Field and furrow heavy grown, yours to tend but not your own. Bread of life shall ye restore to your neighbors evermore. Gather all the nations in, free from sorrow, free from sin. Let the world in gladness come, share the joy of harvest home.
We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, or the warmth of community, or the fires of commitment. For all these we carry in our minds and hearts, until the time shall come when we will be together again. We give thanks for your presence here with us today, and invite you to join us now for a time of conversation and fellowship at the Zoom link that you can find on the All Souls website homepage. I hope you will be with us next week as we consider learning the love that overcomes both loneliness in the heart and injustice in the world. In the meantime, I wish everyone a safe and happy Thanksgiving. Please take care and be well this week.